The council chamber of the Galactic Union trembled under the weight of 1,000 voices. Species of every shape and form argued, hissed, and bellowed. A new matter was on the floor, a matter that should have been simple. The humans had been targeted. And according to the known laws of the galaxy, there was nothing to be done about it. The Xy'rith were raiders, nomadic butchers who had turned entire civilizations into food and fuel for their war engines. They prowled the edge of the Galactic Union like wolves sniffing at a flock. When they set their sights on a species, the Union did nothing. That was the way of things. But this time the species was humanity. Ambassador Elias Carter stood alone in the center of the chamber, hands behind his back, facing down the thousands of alien representatives. His sharp blue eyes swept across them, filled with something none of them expected. Defiance. "We reject this ruling," he said. Chittering laughter broke out. A representative from the Telsh, an amphibious species known for their bureaucracy, shook his bulbous head. "You reject reality, human?" His voice was thick with amusement. "You are a young race. Your military is insufficient. The Xy'rith have spoken. They will come for you and you will be prey." Elias tilted his head. "Is that what they believe?" A new voice echoed through the chamber, a deep, rumbling growl that sent shivers through weaker species. "Humans," the Xy'rith warlord Hask rumbled from his elevated platform, "are food." The Xy'rith were massive, towering reptilian creatures with thick-plated scales, clawed limbs, and a predator's gaze. They had ruled the dark spaces between the stars for centuries, always hungry, always hunting. Hask leaned forward, his jagged teeth bared in amusement. "We have run the calculations. We have studied your worlds. We have tasted your kind before." The warlord's tongue flicked out, savoring the words. "You are weak. Your technology is primitive. Your fleets are scattered." He grinned wider. "This will not be war. This will be the culling of prey." Silence stretched through the chamber. Then Elias Carter laughed. It wasn't forced. It wasn't nervous. It was a genuine, amused laugh. The chamber froze. Even Hask's expression faltered for a fraction of a second. No prey laughed at its hunter. Elias shook his head, still chuckling. "That's your mistake," he said. "You think we're prey." Hask leaned in. "You are." "No," Elias said, his voice sharp as steel. "We're the species that hunted megafauna to extinction with nothing but spears. We're the ones who burned the stars in our own sky to forge weapons against each other. We don't run from war, Warlord Hask." His smile turned cold. "We are war." The room rippled with unease. "You think we're weak?" Elias continued. "Then go ahead. Invade Earth. But let me make something very clear to you, Warlord." He took a step forward, locking eyes with the Xy'rith leader. "You will never leave." Hask let out a booming laugh. "Brave words, human. I will wear your skull as a trophy." Elias only smiled. "We'll see." 2 weeks later, near Earth orbit. The Xy'rith armada arrived in a wave of darkness, a fleet of obsidian warships stretching from horizon to horizon. Their flagship, the Blood Maw, led the charge, a behemoth of alloyed bone and plasma cannons the size of a small moon. Xy'rith raiding fleets had burned planets with a fraction of this force. They expected Earth to kneel. Instead, they were greeted by silence. Not a single Earth vessel moved to intercept them. There was no panic, no desperate call for mercy. And that's when Hask realized something was wrong. "Where are the defenses?" one of his subordinates hissed. Hask's eyes narrowed. He tapped a claw against the armrest of his throne. "They are either arrogant," he growled, "or they are hiding something." A Xy'rith officer turned. "Warlord, we are detecting something unusual on the surface." Hask glanced at the tactical display. His reptilian eyes widened. There were no civilians. No crowds. No panic. Earth's major cities had been abandoned. Every major population center had been fortified. Streets were eerily empty, except for barricades, gun emplacements, and automated defenses. And then the first transmission came through. The human diplomat's voice echoed across the fleet's communication network. "Welcome to Earth, Warlord Hask." It was Elias Carter. "But before you begin your feast, I'd like you to know one thing." The Xy'rith listened, and the words sent a chill down their spines. "We're not locked in here with you." Elias's voice was smooth, amused, confident. "You're locked in here with us." Then Earth's defenses roared to life. The Xy'rith armada had expected terror. They had expected chaos. Instead they found silence. Then the silence broke. The void over Earth lit up with 1,000 firestorms as planetary defense stations erupted to life. Massive railgun batteries, hidden in what had once been civilian buildings, unleashed hypersonic tungsten slugs. Orbital platforms, disguised as inactive satellites, revealed themselves with a deadly bloom of missile contrails. The first Xyrath battleship to die didn't even have time to react. One moment it was there, bristling with weapons, shields humming with energy. The next, a hypervelocity round the size of a city bus tore through its core. The ship didn't explode in the usual way. It simply ceased to be. The kinetic energy turned its internal atmosphere into a self-annihilating fireball. What little remained was scattered across space like dust. Panic rippled through the Xyrath fleet. "Warlord!" One of Hask's officers snarled, his mandibles clicking in alarm. "We are under heavy fire." This was a trap. Hask's claws dug into the arms of his command throne. His slitted eyes darted across the chaos unfolding before him. Humans had planned for this. They had been ready. The comms flared again, Elias Carter's voice calm and amused. "You thought we were defenseless, Hask? That we would let you march into our home without setting the stage?" A new wave of missiles launched from Earth's surface. Hundreds, no thousands, of projectiles streaked through the atmosphere, leaving fiery contrails in their wake before splitting into swarms of micro-tracking warheads. Xyrath ships scrambled to evade, but it was too late. Blinding explosions tore through the darkness. A dozen Xyrath destroyers were reduced to molten shrapnel in an instant. Their shattered hulls spun out of control, slamming into their own formations, adding to the chaos. Hask's eyes burned with fury. "You dare. I warned you, Warlord." Elias's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "You're not the predator here." Hask bared his jagged teeth. "Then we will fight on the ground," he snarled. "Deploy the troops. Burn their cities." The Xyrath began their planetary invasion. They would soon regret it. Surface, Earth's trap closes. From orbit, Earth had seemed abandoned. Empty streets. Quiet cities. No signs of resistance. But that was a lie. The moment the first Xyrath dropships pierced the atmosphere, the real battle began. Concealed anti-aircraft platforms came to life, lancing the sky with directed energy beams and high-velocity flak rounds. Xyrath ships twisted in midair, some bursting apart before they could even deploy troops. Others crashed in fiery wrecks, sending shockwaves through city ruins. Yet some still made it through. And the moment Xyrath warriors set foot on Earth, they realized their mistake. The cities weren't abandoned. They were fortresses. Xyrath troopers, towering, armored, elite, found themselves funneled into tight streets, forced through narrow choke points. And that's when the ambushes began. Shadows moved. Then the humans struck. They emerged from hidden bunkers, from beneath rubble, from camouflaged defensive positions. Snipers delivered headshots with eerie precision. Explosives tore through Xyrath formations, sending massive warriors tumbling like broken dolls. Drones zipped through alleyways, unloading payloads of incendiary munitions. This wasn't war. This was butchery. The Xyrath weren't just fighting soldiers. They were fighting civilians, doctors, engineers, teachers. Every single human was armed, trained, and ready to kill. And they fought like demons. Hask watched from orbit, his rage turning to something he hadn't felt in centuries. Doubt. The invasion wasn't a massacre. It was a slaughter. But not of the humans. Of the Xyrath. Hask's realization. "They knew," Hask muttered, staring at the carnage unfolding on the holo displays. His claws curled into a fist. The humans had planned this. They had wanted the Xyrath to land. They had wanted them to think Earth was weak. His blood ran cold. "This isn't a war," he snarled. "It's a hunt." His officer turned, mandibles trembling. "Warlord, we must retreat." But retreat was impossible. The moment the Xyrath fleet had entered Earth's orbit, humanity had activated its final trap. A network of satellites, inert until now, suddenly powered up, projecting gravitational field distortions and electromagnetic pulses strong enough to cripple Xyrath engines. The mighty fleet, once free to roam the void, was now locked in place. Hask's mind raced. No. This was not how it was supposed to go. They were the hunters, not the hunted. A voice came through the comms once more. "Elias Carter. You're not leaving, Hask." The warlord's claws trembled with fury. The cage had closed. And the humans were about to show the galaxy what happened when you tried to make them prey. Warlord Hask had fought 100 battles across the stars. He had crushed civilizations, broken empires, and left entire species extinct. But never, not once, had he felt trapped. Until now. The Xyrath fleet was ensnared. Earth's gravitational satellites had locked them in orbit, jamming their engines, scrambling their navigation. They were stranded. And down below, on the burning surface of Earth, his warriors were dying. "This is impossible," one of his officers hissed. "These humans, this prey, they should be cowering. Not hunting us." Hask said nothing, because deep down he understood the truth. They had made a mistake. A fatal one. Ground war, the butcher's streets. Xyrath warriors were built for slaughter. 12 feet tall, armored in organic chitin, their claws could tear through steel. But none of that mattered. Not when every single street was a killing ground. Human resistance fighters emerged from hidden bunkers, striking in coordinated waves. They used every inch of the city to their advantage, turning collapsed buildings into sniper nests, sewers into ambush tunnels, rubble piles into explosive death traps. Xyrath squads moved cautiously, their plasma rifles scanning every corner. They knew by now, stepping too far into the open meant instant death. Crack. A sniper round punched through a Xyrath's skull. Boom. An alleyway erupted in flames, vaporizing an entire squad caught in a homemade IED trap. Then the shadows came alive. Human exosoldiers, clad in adaptive camo, leapt from rooftops, landing with brutal efficiency. These weren't untrained militia. They were killers, silent, efficient, and utterly merciless. A Xyrath warrior spun, roaring, plasma blades igniting. A human blade found his throat first. The fall of Warlord Hask's command. Aboard the Xyrath command ship, the bridge was filled with the howls of the dying. Officers barked conflicting orders, some demanding a counterattack, others begging for a full retreat. Hask's claws twitched. His war machine was crumbling. How had it come to this? Then the comms flared to life. Elias Carter's voice. "Come. Controlled." Amused. "Losing your nerve, Warlord?" Hask growled, his mandibles snapping. "You humans are fools. We still have firepower. We will burn your world to ash." Elias's response was cold. "No, Hask. You won't." And then, the Earth itself retaliated. Earth's final strike. Above the atmosphere, the sky burned again. But this time, the fire wasn't coming from human cities. It was coming from space. Hidden warships, long thought to be civilian supply vessels, revealed their true nature. Their hulls cracked open, unfolding like metal beasts, unleashing a devastating barrage of railgun fire and missile storms. But that wasn't the worst part. The moon itself shifted. The lunar colony had remained silent throughout the battle. But now, its defense grid activated, firing orbital kinetic rods the size of skyscrapers, plummeting towards the trapped Xyrath fleet. A battleship near Hask's command vessel was the first to be hit. It didn't explode. It was simply crushed. Turned into a fiery, molten wreck by the sheer force of the impact. The Xyrath fleet, once the most feared force in the galaxy, was being systematically annihilated. Hask stood frozen. This wasn't war. This was execution. The warlord's last stand. Hask snarled, gripping his command throne. He would not die like this. "Arm the main cannons," he roared. "If I am to burn, I will take this planet with me." His officers hesitated. "Warlord, our fleet is crippled." Hask ripped out the officer's throat in one brutal swipe. Fire. The remaining Xyrath warships unleashed hell. Massive plasma lances rained down towards Earth. Superheated beams capable of vaporizing continents. For a moment, it seemed like the Xyrath would have their revenge. Then, the defensive grid activated. A final layer of Earth's defenses snapped to life. Orbital railguns, shield generators, and counter-missile systems intercepted the attack mid-air, turning what should have been an apocalyptic firestorm into nothing more than scattered flames. The planet below remained untouched, and the Xyrath were out of options. Hask's body trembled. There was nothing left to do. No retreat. No victory. Only death. And Elias Carter's voice once again whispering in his ears. "This was never a war, Warlord. It was a lesson." The end of the invasion. Across the battlefield, the Xyrath fleet burned. The few remaining ships attempted to flee, but they were picked off, one, by Earth's hidden warships. On the surface, the last Xyrath warriors were hunted down. Human victory was absolute. And as the flames died, Elias Carter stood in his command room, watching the wreckage of the mighty Xyrath armada. The war was over. The message had been sent. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was death itself. Warlord Hask's fleet was burning. What had once been a force of undefeated conquerors was now nothing but wreckage, scattered across Earth's orbit like a graveyard of arrogance. On the planet below, The last of the Xyrath warriors were being hunted down, not by military might alone, but by a species that had turned survival into an art form. And in the heart of the chaos, Elias Carter stood, watching the destruction unfold. A warlord's last roar. Hask refused to go quietly. His command ship, scarred and burning, still had one last weapon, a doomsday device designed to ignite a star. If he could not have victory, he would have obliteration. His claws slammed into the activation panel. The ship's core roared to life, glowing brighter than any sun. He opened a channel. "You think you have won?" he snarled, his voice filled with madness. "Then let your victory be drowned in fire." The core reached critical mass. The final, desperate supernova. But Earth had one more trick. The final counterstrike. Hidden on the dark side of the moon, a classified human weapon had been waiting. A planetary suppression cannon, one that had never needed to fire before. Until now. The order was given. And the moon itself spoke. A lance of energy so fast it broke the laws of physics, punched through Hask's ship before the explosion could trigger. His vessel didn't just detonate. It ceased to exist. The Xyrath warlord, a nightmare to 1,000 worlds, was reduced to nothing but cosmic dust. The last scream of the Xyrath Empire never even had the chance to echo. The price of arrogance. The galaxy watched. The battle had been transmitted across 100 systems. Every species, every empire, every raider fleet that had once thought of humanity as weak prey had seen the truth. Humans did not just defend themselves. They destroyed. The lesson was burned into history. And Elias Carter? He simply walked away from the war room, rolling his shoulders, as if this entire slaughter had been nothing but a minor inconvenience. "Somebody get me a coffee," he muttered. "I've got negotiations in the morning." Because now humanity was not just safe. It was untouchable. Fire, the war is over. But what happens when humans take the fight to the stars? Subscribe for the next story. Rocket.